All right. It has been a while. It has been a little while since a full day of eating. What have I been doing since the last one? Because it's been like 8 months, maybe. Well, I've been eating, right? I just finished a whole off season. I didn't get super soft. Like, honestly, like I was eating in a surplus, of course, but I didn't get too much unnecessary body fat. That's its own subject altogether. But in a gaining phase, like if you're trying to gain weight, gain size, get bigger, get stronger, a little bit of body fat isn't going to kill you, right? As a beginner, I think main gaining is solid. Hit your protein, but so I got up to about 265 pounds morning fasted weight, and now after a little bit over 3 months of dieting, I've kind of worked my way down to now like a 240. So 240 is like my baseline morning empty stomach weight. And I got to keep going, right? I've got about another 12-ish. Actually, is it a little less than 12? Well, around 12 weeks to lose another basically 12 pounds. Right about there. So I got to lose a pound a week. All right, so what does that mean? I've got to be in a deficit that allows that to happen. So just to like set a basic bar of like how I think about that, and I'm going to make a whole separate video of like what I'd call the Sam Sulek approach to dieting. So I'm not saying it's the best. I'm just saying that would be how I think about it, what helps me stick with it. But I've got to do basically one thing. It's more complicated than this, but if you boil it down, I've got to do one thing. That's burn more energy every day than I eat, right? Burn more energy than I freaking consume. So what that means is this burning energy side, this includes just being alive. Your heart is constantly pumping. You've got all sorts of bodily functions going on at all times. You're pumping out heat because we're warm-blooded. That adds up to a pretty good chunk. So that's maybe here, staying alive. And then you add training, burning some calories, cardio, burning some calories. That all adds up to this calorie burnt side of things, your energy out. So if I burn this much and I only eat this much, well, where'd this come from? Where's this little gap? The idea is if I eat less than I burn, then I have to use my internal energy stores, right? If you stop going to the grocery store and giving yourself a bunch of food, eventually your pantry is going to get empty because you're using all the stuff that you have stored up, So that's the context. Then to get a little more specific, in terms of protein, I think for anybody, just about a gram for however many pounds you weigh, lean-ish, is good. I'm 240, I'm eating 250, just because 250 is kind of a good number. I like it. It's cooler than 240. If you're a 160-pound dude, get into the gym. 160 grams of protein. Perfect. If you're a 350-pound Brian Shaw, he's probably eating at least 350 grams, probably even more just from being bigger. So I've got to do 250 grams of protein-ish. I usually do lower fat, so around 60 grams per day is what I kind of aim for. I'm not going to get any benefit from any more than that. And also, if I'm trying to burn body fat, why would I want to eat a bunch of, fats? I want to use my internal stores. Plus, I'd rather have more carbs in my system because that's going to make your training feel better. I know some guys have a history of like trying to do. There's been a few dudes where they're like in prep, they get into keto. That's not how I think about it. So how my diet's going to change over the next few weeks. Protein's going to stay the same. Fats are going to stay the same. And then I just have to gradually eat less and less carbs to accommodate continuing to lose a steady amount of weight. So this is not meal number one. Technically, meal number one was my pre-workout meal, which was literally 2.5 ounces of ground beef and 2 rice cakes. The ground beef had a little bit of sugar-free barbecue sauce on it, and each rice cake had a little bit of sugar-free, not syrup, jam, like the squeezable kind of Smuckers sort of stuff. So not a lot of food. Like that only added up to about 250 calories. So it was like 25, 24 grams of protein, about 25, 26 grams of carbs from the zero sugar barbecue sauce and a little bit of jam. I made sure to weigh everything out. That was just so I'd have a little something in my stomach before I trained, because I lift in the morning when I'm dieting for the most part, and I don't want to lift fasted. I want at least a little something. So that was meal number 1. But I'd pretty much count this as the first real meal. That was just so I could have something in my system. So it actually makes it a little bit easier to prep this kind of stuff, just so I don't like go home fiending for some food after training and then I eat a bunch of junk. So we're looking at 8 ounces of ground beef, 4 grams of carbs worth of a sugar-free barbecue sauce, and then 2 packs of an instant peach oatmeal. Now, some are going to say, well, why would you eat the oatmeal with added sugar? What are you, freaking nuts? I don't know if it's that deep. I mean, yeah, you know, I wouldn't want to sit here and eat 40 grams of Skittles. That's really going to mess with my, like, that's going to make me feel like my blood sugar's going way out of whack. But the added, 8 grams of sugars in each of these oatmeal packs, it really doesn't hit me like that. Plus, I don't understand the hate on carbs in a dieting phase, I think everyone has these misconceptions that are hardwired into us from how we were raised and like watching TV. Like when people say bread makes you fat, and also every like old bodybuilding training video is chicken, broccoli, rice only. Nothing else. Nothing else will work. It's just not true, So this is going to add up to, I just calculated it all, but I don't remember the exact specifics. So including that original breakfast, the little one, that puts me now at 725 calories. 87 grams of protein with this additional half pound. 10 grams of fats, which actually, it's probably more like 14. I strained this really well, but with ground beef, you're probably safer overestimating the amount of fats that are in it than underestimating, because if you underestimate in a diet, that's going to lead to you overeating, and then you're going to sit here like, oh, I only ate 2,500 calories. Why is the scale not moving? Well, guess what? You really ate 3,200. You just didn't count a bunch of it because you underestimated it, right? So better to be on the safe side. But that leaves me with, for the next however many hours I'm eating, damn near 150 grams of carbs, a little more actually, 40 grams of fats, and about another 150 grams of protein, which if you spread it around decently even throughout the day, not the trickiest thing in the world, right? I mean, this is going to be decently filling right here. I mean, just a half pound of any protein, you really feel that. I'm not going to get home, I mean, even in 2 hours, I'm probably not going to be like starved for another something to eat. But I can almost guarantee that the next meal is going to eat, or, well, it is going to look something along these lines. I'm talking protein base, smaller chunk of carbs on the side, And with this setup, like sometimes if I do like a rice or something and I mix it in with the protein, well then whatever, I just got a big bowl. But if I've got 2 separate things, a ground beef here and then oatmeal's over here, or maybe if I had, I don't know, I guess we'll just have to see whatever else I end up eating for the rest of today. But things like this, where this is kind of the bulk food, not as enjoyable, and then this oatmeal is a little bit sweeter, kind of more, just basically nice to eat, I'm going to eat this last. This is essentially the dessert of this post-workout meal. So I'm going to sit and finish this half pound of ground beef first, then enjoy the oatmeal, and then we can get home and get ready for meal number 2, which will be probably around 1 o'clock-ish. But I'll keep you updated. All right, some substantial time has passed. So now, meal number freaking 2. Or I guess, honestly, this is like meal 2.5. It's because I had that little ground beef breakfast with 2 rice cakes. But that's a theme. I didn't plan for that to be a theme, but that really is the theme today. So this is 10 ounces of ground beef. Why 10 instead of 8? Well, that's just as much was left in the bowl. So what would the point of leaving 2 ounces be, you know? But normally I'm aiming for kind of around a 50 grams of protein per meal basis, just because, you know, it's about right. That's like just a filling amount. Like I've got some turkey breast in there. That's going to be another meal, or that's going to be the protein of another meal. So for me to have 8 ounces of that, you know, I'll cut it up, maybe dip it in like a mustard, maybe do some, well, I guess we'll just see what we end up doing. But that'll be for later. You know, 50 is about right for me. So if your thing is 30, like you can only eat 30 grams of protein at once, and you're like, oh, I'm sick. Well, then just do 30, right? But I think 50 is a good number. You're not going to get anything more out of eating 100 grams of protein in one meal. You know, don't stress about it. But this is very similar to that breakfast. 10 ounces of ground beef, pre-cooked, strained, like this. I just had to take this out of the fridge. 8 ounces, or not 8 ounces, 8 grams of carbs worth of zero sugar barbecue sauce, a little bit of salt, a little bit of garlic powder, just as, you know, a little extra something. 0 calories there, of course. And then this is a meal where I've mixed the carb component into the protein. So I've just kind of got a bowl of mash sitting in front of me. Now, what did I mix in, right? Did I mix in oatmeal? I don't mind doing that, but I wouldn't do that with a barbecue sauce. Did I mix in white rice? I wouldn't mind that either. But no, I crushed up 4 plain salted rice cakes and kind of just stirred that up into everything. Now you might say, whoa, why would you do that instead of just regular rice? I've done this a couple times and I've ended up liking it. It's just more food, you know, and by more, I mean more volume. So if I had 32 grams of carbs worth of rice mixed in here, I'd probably have no idea. 32 grams of carbs worth of cooked rice is like, I could probably get 32 grams of carbs in one big spoon. Like it'd be big, but it's just not that much, you know, because carbs, you know, they can be either like pretty freaking dense, like in a rice, you know, there's not really any room for anything else in there, or they can be kind of fluffed up, like in the case of a rice cake. So it just makes it feel like I'm eating more, even though macronutrients, the macros are the same, you know. So if I were to have 32 grams of carbs worth of Skittles sitting right here in front of me, that'd be like an ounce, or like a not an ounce like in weight, like a little tiny like shot glass worth of Skittles. That would be it, maybe a little more, and it'd be gone in one bite. It wouldn't make me feel full at all, because that's the battle that I'm trying to fight, is making each meal make me feel full, so that going forward I don't feel like I'm dying and just like fiending for more food later. So a meal like this, honestly, pretty freaking filling. Plus the one at the gym, I mean, I don't really even feel like I'm dying to eat this right now. Like I'm hungry, but you know, I'm not like freaking dying or anything. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that the black cat isn't really freaking out about this. He so Rocky's the black one. If I left this on the couch and he came over, he'd eat the whole thing. It's like it's an actual problem. So I'm kind of surprised that he's just sitting over there. But they're all gonna get their dinner probably in a couple hours. My day is gonna look like small meal in the morning, and then that post-workout meal in the gym, and then now 1 o'clock meal number. I guess we could say number 3, just to, you know, keep it consistent. They are more of a morning and then night kind of schedule. But I'm gonna sit here and play with this. Or not play with this, but you know, get this thing finished. And then we can cut to meal number 4, which, I mean, it's not like there's no chance it's just going to be this exact thing again, but we'll see. All right, some time has passed. What time did I say that last meal was? That last meal was like a 2 o'clock ish, you know. So it's been a little while. And as soon as I finished that, played with the cats for a little bit, and then laid down. The sun was coming in. It was very cozy. I freaking fell asleep. I pulled a good old-fashioned, like, fingers interlaced over the lap, head back nap while listening to like some live PB, like true crime videos. And shit, man, I feel rested. That's for sure. So, 6:40, it's time for cardio phase number 2. So now headed to the gym. This wouldn't be unheard of for me to drop down another energy drink. Not tonight, but that's one more angle to consider when it comes to potentially a little bit of hunger curbing. You know, you don't have to jump straight to like trying to do Ozempic to try to mitigate your hunger, right? There's little, smaller things in between. I think there's something to do with cinnamon that people like. It's more of like kind of herbal method. I just hear that. I don't know. I've never actually tried it or anything. But one thing I do notice is to have a little bit more caffeine during the day. So obviously pre-workout in the morning is hitting me for like 300, sometimes 400 milligrams. I've only been doing around 3 for the last couple weeks, but it could jump up, especially the deeper I get into the diets, the more kind of I want to feel that kind of caffeine energy for the workout. But usually 200 in the morning, and then 200 sometime kind of, sort of throughout the day, because caffeine being a stimulant, it kind of has a little bit of a, appetite suppressing effect. It's not huge, but it's there, So honestly, I wouldn't feel bad about cracking open that, that whatever at 3 o'clock, just because it does kind of have that effect, But it's nothing magic, but it's definitely something to consider. So this cardio session does not need to be caffeinated. Honestly, I feel pretty well rested, and it's kind of late, So that's another angle with caffeine too. Are you going to throw off your sleep if you have caffeine, X hours close to bedtime? Right? Maybe. That's something I've kind of started to consider too. I'm not wearing red light glasses starting at 8 o'clock yet, but it could happen. So I packed a little meal number 4 for the post-cardio meal. So I got how about I finish my 30 minutes and then we can pop a squat back on the desk like we were in the morning, and then see, I don't want to say lunch because it's not even lunchtime, but see what kind of snacks that I pack myself. All right, a very familiar sight indeed. It's nice having the bike. It's very zen getting to sit up here. I knew this would be a freaking cool idea to put this little second floor up. But yeah, this will be powering down. I think this would be a cool spot for a stream. Yeah, that's on the list. That's on the freaking to-do list. But this meal is very, very, very freaking similar to the last one. So, actually not to the last one, but to the one that I had when I was in here. Same thing, 2 packs of instant oats, this time the blueberry flavor, which they should sell in packs on their own. They might not do it because they know people like it, so they want you to buy the variety pack. But 42 grams of carbs, 2 grams of fats. It might say 2 grams of protein. I just consider it negligible. Protein from non-dedicated protein sources, I don't really go through tracking. Not because it's not like they don't have any caloric value, but if I'm aiming for 250, if I go a little over on the protein side from things like that, I don't think it's had a huge effect. And I've dieted up and down like a couple times. It just hasn't really changed much for me. So on the protein side of things, a little heavier just because I was kind of hungry at the time that I kind of prepped this. But I've got 11 ounces of just a big block of turkey breast. So the only place I ever see these is at Costco, and it's a freaking 5-pound thing. Vacuum sealed, pre-cooked. It's moist. It's not just deli turkey. It's substantially better. So it comes in, it looks like a freaking loaf. So you just cut off as much as necessary. I don't even put it in a Tupperware. Usually I just unwrap it from its seal, kind of pat it dry, leave it in a Ziploc bag. And then if you get good at it with your food scale, which you should have in your kitchen, you can take it out, cutting board, and very precisely cut off a slab of the exact amount that you need. So for me, normally 8 ounces. This is a little bit bigger just because I had to carve into it so it could fit into a Tupperware container because I ran out of gallon bags. So I just kind of cubed it this time. But either way, 72 grams of protein, 42 grams of carbs, 2 of fats. I said 4 grams of fat in the whole thing of the turkey, which is something I'm going to get into in a second. And then 4 grams of carbs worth of that same sugar-free barbecue sauce that I put on the ground beef. So that's freaking cool with me, you know. There's a lot of extra things that I'll do sometimes, like I'll get a Kirkland fat-free cheese, which is just like a hyper process, like they get all the lipids out, you know, just kind of add whatever proteins and like amalgam to turn it into like, you know, kind of a cheesy sort of shredded cheese thing. And sometimes I'll maybe sprinkle 10 grams of protein worth of that on this, microwave it. That's a pretty decent add. But the more that I've done that, and I still do it sometimes, like I'll do powdered peanut butter where it's like PB fit, so it's not as fatty. Mix it with maple or sugar-free maple syrup. Put that on a keto piece of bread, and then I've got like a PB&J with like a sugar-free syrup or a sugar-free like strawberry jelly or something. And I mean the macros are better, you know, like it's maybe 200 calories total versus, I mean, a full-on PB&J could be like 500, depending on how much like peanut butter you might put on it. But the more that I've done that, the more I've kind of noticed it looks better. It definitely tastes better in the moment, but it doesn't really make me feel all that more full. So honestly, this is probably going to be my most, maybe not consistent because I'm always consistent, but my most plain dieting phase that I've done, where instead of like trying to cheat the system in like, you know, getting all the low carb, like super high fiber stuff or all the, just kind of sticking to the basics, you know. And so far it's been working out pretty well. Like I feel like this last a little more than 3 months of dieting, which I've gradually had to, you know, adjust my calories downward. The first 4 weeks I just ate whatever I wanted because I didn't have to like, you know, hit my bulk calories. I could just eat maintenance, and that was making me lose weight. So now, yeah, still feel like momentum's good, you know. So same logic as the ground beef earlier. I'm going to eat the main course protein side first and save the oatmeal for later. Or not later, but for after. You know, it's better to have not to spoil your dinner by eating your dessert first. And then, so far, 8 o'clock now, I am at, and then I forgot to include, before I took that nap, I had 2 rice cakes with a little bit of sugar-free jam. So I still do it, but just not as much. So with 2 of those rice cakes, this meal of protein and oatmeal is now leaving me at 196 grams of carbs, 37 grams of fat, and 250 grams of protein. So this is one more thing I'll say before we move on to the next meal. When it comes to the fat values, like when I do a grocery haul, I get hit with 2 things. It's, why isn't this guy eating a bunch of vegetables? And where are the fats? Now, the vegetable side of things, honestly, eating relatively varied foods like this with animal protein, especially with ground beef in the mix. I mean, I get my blood tested regularly, and that's not just hormone levels. That shows your, you know, like vitamin levels and whatever. I haven't noticed any deficiencies. If I did, then I'd have to adjust accordingly. Plus, you throw a multivitamin into the mix. It's kind of hard to be vitamin deficient if you're eating, like, you know, bodybuilder style meals. But when it comes to the fats, that's something I'm a little bit more passionate about, because what do you mean, where's the fats, right? Because the fats, they sneak in, right? Fats are kind of tricky. I'm trying to limit myself to 60 grams per day, right? You know how much fat is in a double cheeseburger from McDonald's? I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember, but easily 25. So that's just one thing, and that's not even like crazy fatty, right? Like in a tub of Ben and Jerry's, I think there's what, maybe 60. Like fats add up, man. You know, and they're in everything. Like unless you know, in a couple of months, I'm not gonna eat ground beef anymore. I'm gonna mainly switch to just like tunas and egg whites and like ground turkey, just because even when you strain and like try to squeeze out all the fat from the ground beef, there's still reasonable freaking amount. So not eating anything that's fat specific so far in these 4 meals, I'm already at 40 grams, 37 grams of fats. So that's another thing where it's just like jargon that lives on, like we're always talking like, oh, well, where are your healthy fats, man? Why aren't you eating 4 egg yolks? But then people won't eat sardines, and I mean, that's probably some of the best omega-3s you could get. But the idea is people can kind of get caught up in this just mentality of, well, it's what kind of foods you're eating, not the caloric energy value of the foods themselves. Like we put foods into 2 categories: junk food and healthy food. And if you were to ask 1,000, totally random people to sort out maybe 100 pieces of food or 100 different types, eggs, to all the cholesterol. People are going to say eggs are in the unhealthy side, and healthy they're going to say, oh, just a salad. Really, a salad? You're trying to tell me that guys who are like totally hardcore vegetarian only don't have their own kind of problems? Like it's a whole subsection of the of like any kind of vegan or like hardcore vegan. I don't want to say dogma because that's not the right word, but just like conversation, because you're just missing out. I could, if you gave me 3 pounds of ground beef to eat every day versus only, like broccoli and lettuce, guess what? I'm going to be way better off. Every health metric's going to be better from the ground beef. So there's just a lot of like random misconceptions and not enough value on how much fuel is getting put into the tank. This makes me feel good, like eating all the just oats, the like all the rice cakes. Honestly, the rice cakes are a huge game changer just because they're pretty filling for only 8 grams of carbs each. So if I'm kind of hungry and I mosey on into the kitchen and grab the pantry, 3 rice cakes, 100 calories, maybe 10 grams of carbs worth of like a sugar-free jelly, but still that puts me at 140 calories. I'm probably going to eat that before bed because I'm basically at my protein goal and I've got a lot of carbs left. It's so I don't like to see it, right? Because I know, even though like I think this is pretty good meal wise for me, I feel good, I sleep well, I don't feel like a bunch of energy spikes from having my blood sugar go up and down. I also know that if this was, the protein wouldn't change, I'd still be eating ground beef or whatever. But if instead I had 40 grams of I don't know, like Nerds ropes sitting right here, I'd still lose weight. I wouldn't have as much fun doing it, and it would probably throw my insulin sensitivity off. Like it's certainly not the same thing. But I mean, look at the Twinkie diet as an extreme, or look at the guy who lost I don't know how many pounds eating only McDonald's, right? Those examples aren't examples to follow. They're simply proof of concepts that your calorie value in versus your energy expenditure out plays the biggest role out of anything. So I'm going to go ahead and slam this little more than half pound of turkey, almost 3/4 pound. Enjoy these blueberry oatmeals after, and then we can cut to the kitchen to meal number 5, which I might not even call it a meal because it's just going to be more like a snack because I'm not going to have to eat any more protein. It's just going to be a good chunk of carbs, which is really nice. Like if I could decide what to have left, like what to have basically 400 calories left of in the day, I'd totally rather go to bed eating 400 calories of carbs versus 400 calories of protein, just because it's going to be, well, I don't know, let's be real, man, carbs are freaking sweet. But no more of that. So I'm going to sit here, chill, scroll on my phone, and then I'll see you in the kitchen. Okay, it's the end of the day. Food consumption is nearly complete, but that doesn't mean that I don't have room for a little something. I got a very janky. Yeah, there we go. But protein done. Ended with that last 11 ounces of turkey. That put me at 250. 249. That's okay. That's within reason. Fats, 37 grams. So I'm aiming for 50. It's not like a cut and dry rule or anything. but I just don't want to overdo it with my fat intake, especially as I'm dieting. And not even because of like, oh, well, you're eating fats and then you're not burning fats or just whatever. How I'm looking at it is I've got three kinds of food I can eat. I can eat proteins, I can eat fats, and I can eat carbs. Well, I'm going to eat 250 grams of protein regardless. That's not really up in the air. And then I've got carbs and fats, which can kind of move back and forth. If I eat more fats, I'd eat less carbs. If I eat more carbs, then I eat less fats. Well, I'd rather lean on the carb heavy side. That's actually going to make me feel more full. Like, not full like in my stomach. I mean, full like muscularly, at least even just a little bit. And in terms of just like training recovery, you're never going to see me just jump straight to, I don't even know. I'm not going to slam half a pound of bacon if I'm thinking, oh man, I want to eat something. It's going to be a carb. It's going to be a bunch of oatmeal. It's going to be whatever. But so I had a ton of freaking room. I'm not going to overdo it. So today my fats are going to be a little lower and my carbs are going to be a little bit higher than normal. So instead of 50 and 250, today it's going to be 37 and 303. So the final carb intake of the day, adding up to a freaking 99 grams of carbs worth, is these caramel rice cakes. A regular rice cake, unflavored, on anything, usually 8 grams of carbs. With the extra kind of flavoring, just like sugary coating that they put on these, each one's 11. You're only looking at 5 because I already ate 4 before. Because I didn't want to just sit here and do a whole talk, like just thinking about eating them. But that all adds me up to 2,541 calories for the day, which right now is about right. So, whether you think that's high or low or, somewhere in the freaking middle, what's dictating whether I start eating more food or less food, it's not a preference thing. It's not a, like, theory thing. I'm getting on the scale every morning, same time, after going to the bathroom, either wear the exact same amount of clothes or just go clothesless so you have a really consistent day by day measuring, and then see what happens, right? Somebody could say that they're locked in harder than they ever have before. They're really getting after it. They're intermittent fasting. And then the scale reads that they gained a pound every week for the past 2 months. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter how hard they were trying to diet. It just wasn't happening. It's an objective reality of this dude was eating too much food and the scale reflected that, right? Honestly, that's the best part about the scale. It's just this completely objective fact of the matter reading. So if you can learn to accept that and not get upset by the scale going up or down or whatever, then you can use it as a tool. So, I've been around like a 2650 the last few weeks, and I've been coming down, but I feel like I'm kind of stuck at 240. I feel like I've been 240 like every morning the last few mornings, and usually I want to at least see like a couple dips. So that's my cue to pull back a little bit. So I think bouncing around the 2,550, 2,500 calorie range, and then seeing how that changes things will be good. So I'll make sure to stick to that 2,500 for the next 2 weeks, week, just enough to see a change in pattern. And if I do, and then, in 2 weeks' time, I'm 238 in the morning instead of 240, well, then that means I'm good, and I can keep eating 2,500 and sail smooth. But that's an ideal situation. So if the scale isn't changing, I've got to change, right? I've got to change the routine. So I can either do more cardio, eat less food. I'm trying not to do too much more cardio so I don't overdo it. I think an hour a day, 30 in the morning, 30 at night, is about the sweet spot. And any more, I might kind of start getting into like, not total like fatigue. I'm not doing marathons. But if you do too much cardio, I do think it can kind of eat into your recovery a little bit. So I think an hour of energy expenditure, additional to normal, is probably where I want to keep it. And then just continue lowering my food intake as time goes on. So I'll definitely do a few more of these because I'm sure I'll have some kind of funkier days. I know today was a little bit more repetitive, just, meats, oatmeal, rice cakes. But what else is there to eat, man? And whether or not you think that that's like, oh, you shouldn't do it like that, or, I only did the canned tuna diet only with mustard, and that's how we did it. We did keto, we did zero carb. Well, whatever, right? Your results are your results to get or not to get. But as long as I'm on track and I can see the scale continue to kind of just creep down ever so steadily at the rate that I want to see, well, then that means I'm good. So I'm going to sit here and I'd say scarf these down, but you can't really eat rice cakes super fast. So I'll kind of actually just get to sit and enjoy these, splice this thing together, and then well, I'll see if whatever other lift goes on tomorrow.